They might talk about humor, music, film, books, football and box sets, exercise and maybe even food, trivia and sport, politics and health, sometimes well-being too. On the Life with Brian. On the Life with Brian.
Over the past 6 years, occasions such as these haven't really mattered to English football. Oh, we've missed them all right, but they've missed us too. 15,000 Manchester United fans with tickets have made their way over by train and boat and plane, and they're helping to provide a really splendid atmosphere here in the Feyenoord Stadium. And just listen to the noise as Manchester United and Barcelona take to the field. We've had wind, we've had rain here in Rotterdam today, but all that doesn't matter now. What matters is the final of the European Cup Winners' Cup. United really have been splendid ambassadors in pioneering the return of English clubs into Europe, but for the first time on their travels this season they meet a team of genuine European pedigree in Barcelona. This really is the big time.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Life with Brian. I've got with me, of course, Brian McClare.
Hello there, how are we?
Aye, not too bad, not too bad. And of course, Matthew Christ is here as well. How are you, Matthew?
Evening all. Very well, thank you.
Very good. And I'm Mark, and I'm fine too. And later in the show, we're going to be joined by a guest, and that's journalist and editor of the Manchester United fanzine, United We Stand, Andy Mitten. Well, why have we convened? 15th of May, 1991, 30 years ago already, Manchester United and its army of fans took the short hop over the North Sea to the Dutch city of Rotterdam to face Spanish giants and champions that year, Barcelona, in the European Cup Winners' Cup final. It was an important night, not only for United and Alex Ferguson, of course, but for the whole of English football. This was the first season of our rehabilitation into European football after the 5-year ban after the Heysel Stadium disaster in 1985. And with the only other English side, Aston Villa, eliminated from the UEFA Cup early on, Manchester United were the country's standard bearers. Now, I'm not a Manchester United supporter, so Brian and Matthew, I sincerely hope you've both got good memories. Otherwise, this is going to be an extremely short episode.
Well, I'm sure the memories Brian's got are more important than mine. 30 years, Brian, where did all the time go? Have they been a good 30 years for you?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, as you can see, I'm wearing particularly well. The 30 years, it was a particularly good short period of time for me in that my youngest child was born 8 days before. That wasn't the actual day wasn't particularly great because I believe it was a bank holiday Monday, and we had been at Highbury, and we were given the honour of giving the Arsenal team a guard of honour as they wandered onto the pitch with their champions T-shirts. So that was and then Liam decided that he would wanted to be into the big wide world later on, early the next morning. So it wasn't, I missed it. That was the only one I missed, but we couldn't quite get back in time. You know, he was keen to get out there, and he was there when I got back early in the morning.
So
we lost the game as well. We lost.
Yeah, I remember it well. But then obviously what happened in Rotterdam probably capped, a great week, most memorable week.
Everything then from that moment or from the preceding thing was very much geared towards a special event, and we knew we knew that the manager was treating it as in a particular way because we went to the Netherlands on the Monday. So you would normally travel to a European game the day before, but we went on the Monday, and when we got to the hotel, it was very small, very different from what we'd been used to any time we were at away games, and it transpired that United had booked out the hotel for the whole of the period for the Monday, Tuesday, and the Wednesday. So there was very much a very peaceful because it was in the suburbs somewhere. I do recall them having the club, or certainly someone decided it would be a good idea to have a games room. So there was a room that had some video games. I can't remember which video games they were in the cabinets, like they would be in pubs, and I think there was a pool table as well. So there was a lot of thought had gone into all the preparation with regards to running up to the game on a Wednesday evening.
Do you think that was a conscious decision? I mean, it wasn't just coincidence. You think that a detail like that would have been taken into consideration?
No, I think they would looked at. I think that the manager and his staff would have had several discussions about what the preparation would look like right up to kickoff. They would have had I don't know if that was a similar sort of scenario as to what Aberdeen did when they won the Cup Winners' Cup when Fergie and Archie Knox were in charge. Archie had only left a few weeks prior to the final, which was a bit of a negative because he was held in high regard both as a coach and as a person. But you know that sort of thing happens in football. So everybody, I think, of all the rest of the staff were involved in. Certainly, the coaching staff were involved in the preparations through Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
I mean, it was obviously United's first European final since winning the European Cup in '68 at Wembley. A game you probably remember as a young kid. I mean, you obviously remember the Celtic game the year before, so it's probably on your mind. I believe Matt Busby was there with you in Rotterdam that night. I mean, were you aware of the huge significance of the match for the club and for the fans and for everyone?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been aware since. I mean, I really enjoyed some great European nights at Celtic Park, and then coming down to England, and there was no European football. I did miss that, and I mean, football in England, and to my memory, certainly football was treated very. I don't want to say it was poorly. It was deserved because of several situations, but it was like a pariah. Nobody seemed to be interested in it. It was almost, it was a national game where there's still the defences up. There was just a lot of negativity, I think, attached to football, and then for the UEFA then to create, I can't really remember. Was it a particular ban? Was it a certain length of time they were banned, or?
Yeah, it was 5 years English.
Decide, well, that was enough. Was it 5 years?
Yeah, and then Liverpool got an extra ban.
I think that it was winning the cup in 1990, and then knowing that the following year, assuming that the UEFA stuck to their decision. We were going to be competing in the Cup Winners' Cup, so that was something wonderful to look forward to. And I don't really remember whether we were listening to the draw or whether indeed the draw would have been available live. But when we got to our first game, I don't even think it was on the map or any readily available maps where we were going. So it was right away we're going to start on an adventure travelling to. I think I was joking at the time we were going to go to deepest, darkest Transylvania.
But you weren't far off. I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, United drew Pesi Munkas of Hungary in what the now defunct Cup Winners' Cup. I mean, these are the days before any kind of group stages or seedings. I mean, it was basically everyone in a hat and whoever came out first. So, it was a trip to Hungary in the first round. And you've mentioned before about these fans that went dressed as Santa Claus.
I mean, again, as you're saying, I think there's for me, a big part of the whole kind of thing was the fans travelling, and as I could appreciate the sacrifices. I mean, they say that we flew, and then there was a considerable bus trip to the game and a considerable bus trip after, and there was quite a lot of very vociferous Manchester United fans at the game, and of course you are going to notice in the summertime that there are a number of supporters who have got the full Santa Claus outfits on, including beards like this one. There was, I couldn't say how many there were, but there was enough to say that there was whatever a group of Santas are called, there was a gaggle of Santas or whatever of Santas there, and I remember chatting to them after the game and just being kind of impressed by how they'd managed to get there, where they'd left, and what cities they had, and which countries they'd travelled through, and modes of transport. I think the only mode of transport they hadn't utilised was horses. So
you were able to have some pretty good interaction with these, because this is before the day.
After the game, we came out. It was a very small ground. We came out the game, and they were there. We just chat away and how things. How did you get here? And very impressed. Whether you're not pretty hot in those? Yeah, sweltered. Yeah, but they'd made a decision that they were going to go to the game. Found a way of getting there. And part of their fun was they were I don't know if they had them on the whole time, from the minute they left home until the minute they got back, but they had a good time, and it was a good result.
I mean, did you get to explore many of these cities that you went to, or were you cooped up in a?
No, we didn't. I mean, as I say, we didn't stop there. I think we stayed in we didn't stay there because I know we got the bus back from there, so there couldn't have been any. I think part of the thing was that you'd want to get back, so you get back to somewhere near the airport, so you fly back the next day. So
obviously we discussed the different rounds we had with Pesi Munkas, Wrexham, Montpellier, Legia Warsaw. I mean, you scored in every round leading up to the final. Was that something that you were aware of as the run went on, or were you just taking it one step at a time? I mean, did you get to the final thinking I've scored in every round here and I want to keep that record going? Or was it?
Yeah, you always want to you always want to score. There's nothing. I mean, nothing better than scoring goals. As we were chatting with about how we feel that the football player of today is getting robbed that opportunity of celebration, not only celebrating with his teammates, or internal celebration, celebrating his teammates, but celebrating with your fans. And you are aware when you score goals, but it's more important that you're winning games and getting through to the next round. But it's like anything, you don't. When you dream about being a football player, it doesn't change when you actually get to finals. It's a League Cup final, the FA Cup final, or the Cup Winners' Cup final. You always want to score. I always wanted to score a goal because that was the biggest thrill for me. Second only to winning the actual game, and I did have a chance to score. A great pass from Gary Pallister, and it was woeful, really. But the ball did bobble, but it was a woeful effort, really. But I'm claiming a bobble. I'm going for the bobble. But I think that other players that more used to that sort of surface might have made a better connection. But it didn't. Then you're disappointed to do that because, as I say, it was as the ball comes through, you know that this is a chance. You get it on target. There's a good chance if you hit it with enough power. You could score a goal. But it's the ball. I'm not sure if the ball actually stayed in the stadium.
That's a good ball by Pallister. Now McClare, and a real chance for Manchester United. Oh, and he's knocked it over. That was a glorious opportunity, and Brian McClare, who scored in every round. What a good pass by Pallister.
I'm afraid that's the sort of chance that you actually dream about getting in the first 10 minutes of a game, and Brian McClare is the type of man you would favour in that sort of position. Really made a pig's ear of the situation. One has to say that.
Especially Uncas, Wrexham, Montpellier in the lead up to the final, Legia Warsaw semi-final. Then we get to the final, of course, and from somebody that spent that day in Amsterdam, I'm sure you remember well, it absolutely poured it down with rain. I'm sure there's a Scottish word for the day, that day in Amsterdam. Would it be Dreek or something like that, was it?
Oh, Dreek, yeah. I mean, but it was even more. It was properly Dreek when we walked out onto the pitch for the warm-up, but not Dreek enough to see and to hear the Manchester United fans, of which when you looked around the ground, clearly were in the majority.
Very much.
That gave certainly for me it was a big plus and a big buzz that so many people had managed to find a way of travelling from all over the place, but mainly from UK to Holland and Rotterdam on that night. And there was a real friction about the crowd, particularly coming from the Manchester United fans, and I think it gave us certainly gave me a lift and the other ones. But on the other way, you're hoping that the same kind of way. I mean, like Barcelona were used to having crowds then of 110,000. They had that, and they played in front of that in the home semi-final against Juventus. So I think when you walk out to places where sometimes you've a neutral venue and the numbers are against you and the atmosphere's against you, could possibly be a bit, as much as it was a positive thing for us, I felt that they looked a wee bit overawed by it, even though they were used to playing in front of 110,000.
Now, you were famously told by Alex Ferguson to man-mark Ronald Koeman that night, as well as playing up front with Mark Hughes. You were told to stick with him. As soon as Barcelona got the ball, you had to close him down.
As soon as he got the ball, as soon as they got the ball, I was to. Fergie used to have a thing in most team talks where he would identify who he thought was a key player in the opposition, and a lot of the times he would say that if you stop this person playing, stop them being influential in the game, you will win the game. Now that wasn't always down to one person; it was usually whoever was closer to them. But in this particular case, it was I was given. What was the first thing he said in his team talk, which you're wondering if he actually says it, because it doesn't. It's not usually the first thing someone says, or he's not usually leads the team out, gives you a few things. He came into the room, and he stood in front of the room, and he just pointed to me. He pointed, and then he said, "If you do your fucking job tonight, we'll win the game." And I thought, and everybody was just kind of looking, and I was like, no pressure then. And then he went on to say, you stay close to Koeman when they've got the ball. Your job is to stop him playing. You do that, we'll win the game.
But is that a rock?
When we've got the ball, you can do whatever you want to do, but you make sure that he can't pass the ball any more than fucking 10 yards.
But is that a role that you'd performed before, or had it just been landed on you that night? I mean, was it a bit of a shock, or
No, never.
So it's completely thrown on you before one of the biggest games of your career.
At the time, one of the biggest games, which at the time was a bit of a terrifying thought, but he clearly, they had identified, and more particularly him, how to win the game, and the key part that he was saying, the suggestion was that he makes, and he did make them. He was the one that made Barcelona work. He was the one that dictated how they played. He was a wonderful passer of the ball, particularly over a passing the ball over and through the lines. For a lot, they had a lot of very quick players, and he felt if you stop that. Curb that thing, that he'd have to pass the ball sideways, backwards, and he was never the most of mobile player, so he wasn't going to run past me and sort of do that. And that was my role in it, and it was an honour that he trusted me so much to give me that, but it was daunting at the time.
I think it had a double effect really, because it seemed to me he played in front of the back four slightly. So when you were marking him, when the ball came back to United, you tended to be in the areas where he was. And as you said, he wasn't particularly getting tight to you when the ball was coming back in their direction. So having watched the game, you had a lot of room to pass and move. So actually Ferguson's defensive tactic in that respect actually turned out to be a very effective, positive move from United. The link up between, you talked about the chance you had and Pallister's through ball to you. You ran from deep, and I'm not being sycophantic here, but I thought you were the most effective attacking player on the field.
Well, as you say, I think that was down to his analysis of Barcelona and Barcelona's players, and knowing that he'd already said that you just play when we've got the ball, we're going to play how we play. Probably because of what he was saying, that the players who would normally be looking to mark me, I was maybe a little bit deeper than normal, so I was kind of in between, as you say. I was probably more in between their midfield and their defence when we got the ball. It was a great night. It was a thoroughly enjoyable game. The weather, the supporters, and then getting goals at the times we got goals were pretty crucial. I think we were all told to be as aggressive as we could within the rules. So I think that there's a few, more than a few, challenges that were there to let the Barcelona players know that they were in a contest, they were going to be a fight, but we knew that we could play as well. Maybe not the same kind of football that they played and some of the players that they had were capable of, but we knew we were a decent unit, that we were a team that were prepared to beat each other's shoulder when we needed to be. And time again, I think you'll see, probably more particularly with Ince, Robson and Phelan, some of the challenges that were put in, but fair challenges, but potentially bone-shivering.
Yeah, I mean, talking of taking chances, one man who took his chances that night was obviously Mark Hughes with 2 goals against his former club, although Steve Bruce might have had something to say about that at the time. But
it looked as if, because I was right there, that it was going to cross the line. Would I have touched it in? Yeah, maybe. I might have smashed it in myself, but
no, there was no rows in the dressing room about it afterwards, were there? I mean, was he?
No, there was. No, there might have been a bit of banter at the time. Well, yeah, there was a bit of it was over the line, wasn't it, from Brucey? And when I was there, we'd say, well, no, actually, it wasn't over the line. But I think it was probably going over the line, And yet, let's face it, Sparky's a greedy bastard. That's it, you know.
But I mean, he had a point to prove, obviously. I mean, and I remember at the time there was the big thing about how Mark Hughes wanted to prove a point to Barcelona. He'd had a miserable year or two there. He felt he hadn't justified himself after a big move. Do you think that's how he saw it at the time, or do you think to him it was just another day at the office? He just wanted to score goals to win United a cup.
No, I think there would have been a little bit more edge to Sparky in that particular game because he had been there and it hadn't worked out the way that everybody envisaged it would. But it's just typical of being that on the night that Sparky was in the right place at the right time. Great header, save from Brucey, probably going in, but Sparky was there to nudge it over the line. And the second one is a great finish.
Hughes onside. There's a chance for another one here. Maybe not now. Yes, there is! A fantastic goal by Hughes. Spreads his arms wide and probably makes the game safe for United. I thought he'd taken that far too wide. He was forced wide by the goalkeeper's attentions. But what about this? Whack! 2-0 to Manchester United.
The Sparky at best.
I was going to say that was typical Mark Hughes, wasn't it? I mean, every time you see that go,
and the way that the way typical. A lot of people will go around goalkeepers and try and roll the ball towards the goal. Had he rolled the ball towards the goal, it would have got cleared, I think. But because he's turned in, he's hit it with his usual beastly power. That gave the defenders no chance of recovery. You know.
Yeah, and to put United in a apparently comfortable 2-0 lead, but that was until Ronald Koeman's 35-yard free kick.
Watch Koeman. He has got the most explosive free kick. He's renowned for it throughout European football. And United, if he pierces this wall and gets it past Les Seeley, they're not home and dry yet. Here's Koeman with the free kick. And it's in there!
The nerves started jangling there, including a late Clayton Blackmore clearance off the line. I mean, were you the sort of player when, in the dying minutes of a game, did you feel the nerves jangling, or were you just keeping to what you would?
There is a bit of that because in any game, although I think that we were quite dominant in lots of parts of the games, but with a team as good, with the quality and the individual brilliance of some of their players, you know that they were going to get some kind of chances. And although even from when he's taking the free kick, you're looking over and thinking that's not like a normal Ronald Koeman magnificent strike, you know. And then it's managed to it's kind of. It didn't look like, as I said, and then you're quite surprised, I think, and I was surprised that it actually ended up in the back of the net, the way that they get a goal and they're all of a sudden lifted, and we're then defending for that period of the game. I think they got a goal chopped off as well.
Yeah, there was an offside goal, and then Clayton obviously cleared one off the line. So.
And then again, I would put that down to Clayton listening to exactly what he was told to do when it comes to where he's supposed to be when we're defending, and the ball drops to him and he smashes it away, which is almost the last act of or he smashes it far enough away for us, I think, to retain possession and see the last bit of the game out.
Yeah, which obviously he did, and. Anyone that remembers that night and those famous scenes of United going up to collect their first European trophy in, 23 years? Brian Robson went up to collect the cup and lift it to the huge United support there in Rotterdam. But who was the first man up behind him? It was you. I mean, I always wondered, was that a conscious decision? Were you the one that wanted to be up next, or was it just a case of whoever was there got the medal first?
Well, I've always been kind of... hopefully self-deprecating when it comes to ego and glory, and in any other cup final I was involved in, I was probably the last person to go up. But I thought it had been such a kind of amazing night that I thought, no, bugger this, I'm going to get in the photographs.
which is obviously what you did, why we still remember it all these...
So I just breezed up. I just breezed up behind Robbo, so that was the thought. Yeah, that was
your
my,
David
conscious
May
thought.
moment, was it?
That was my David May, David May. David May did the Brian McClare, that was my conscious thing. I thought, I want to get now. I think tonight I fancy getting in the photographs.
Well, here comes the big moment for Manchester United, and not least for their irrepressible captain, Brian Robson. Up he goes. The Cup Winners' Cup of 1991 belongs to Manchester United.
As promised, we have with us United We Stand editor, journalist for 442, The Athletic, BBC, Sky, and others, Andy Mitten. Andy, welcome and thanks for coming along to share your memories.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Firstly, we need to put United's 91 European Cup Winners' Cup triumph and following United into two separate contexts. Firstly, there was the pre and post 1990 FA Cup final win and how that acts as the marker for when things started changing at Old Trafford. And the second one, I suppose, is the position of English football in general, post Hillsborough. And then, of course, when England sort of fell back in love with football after Italia 90, although they were two very different defining events, of course, that shaped the game in this country. And, go into watch United. What was your supporters' perspective in and around that cup run, as I said, in those two situations?
We started United We Stand in November 89 when Manchester United struggled to win any matches, but it wasn't about the form of the team. It was because I felt that football fans were being treated as second-class citizens. My own experience going to games was a poor one. I'd go to places like Nottingham Forest and I'd pay £4 to stand on a terrace where the view was terrible, where there was no cover. And £4 was a lot of money when you were getting £2.20 on your paper round. And there was talk of ID cards being introduced by the government, and football fans were routinely called hooligans. And you're quite right to mention Italia 90. I saw a huge change in the type of people getting into football after they saw Paul Gascoigne's tears. But we started United We Stand, and straight away we were into this war of whether the manager should be sacked or not, because a lot of Manchester United fans, they'd had enough. They didn't think that Sir Alex Ferguson was the man. And we started selling it. I mean, I was a kid, I was 15. We didn't know where it was going. But there's a few bumpy moments along the way. But gradually, Manchester United started getting better and better. And that 90 Cup win was really significant. It was a great buzz going to those games as a young fan and going to places like Bramall Lane. I didn't go to St James's Park, which is probably a good thing because people who went there said it's one of the roughest places they've ever been that day in terms of being attacked by Newcastle fans. And then the finals at Wembley. And then leading on from that, you just felt that Manchester United were getting stronger. The team was improving. You could see that 5 players had been brought in 89 and they took a little bit of time to settle, but Paul Ince was a brilliant player. Gary Pallister, Mal Donaghy, Mike Phelan, Danny Wallace, they all had the moment. So I was a young lad in Manchester. It was an exciting place to be with the music around, the football. I was going to away games for the first time. You're growing up, you're becoming an adult, and it was just such an exciting time to be able to go to the games and just to buy tickets and turn up. You didn't have to plan 5 weeks in advance like you do now.
Well, you mentioned about going to away games. If we look at the 1990-91 European Cup Winners' Cup, there were some very exotic foreign trips on that run to the final, as was always the case in those lesser European competitions. There was Monkas, Montpellier, Warsaw, and of course the bright lights of Wrexham. What are the great memories of those away days for yourself, or any other of the great stories that you've heard over time?
I'd started going to every single game the following season. I was just going to domestic games in 1991, but I did go to Wrexham. It was only an hour from Manchester. I got an official members coach, and I found myself behind 2 people on the coach who were like terrace leaders in the Stretford end. I think they were called Terry and Chinny. And to me, I've never spoke a word to him in my life, but these were like godlike characters because they started the songs on the right side of the Stretford end. And suddenly, wow, I'm on the seat behind him on the way to Wrexham. And it's a huge game for Wrexham. And Wrexham had a really good ground given the status. It had staged international matches. I just enjoyed it. I was just drinking in the whole thing of going to away games. Montpellier, I was determined to go, and I learned a lot about life, I think, because of that, about sayers and doers, because when the draw was made, everyone was like, yeah, we're all going. I'm great. Okay, I saved up my money. Like, let's go, let's book it. And all my mates pulled out. And I just thought, you know what? From now on, I'm going to judge who I think is a sayer and who is a doer. And Montpellier is probably the game I miss and regret missing more than any in all the time I followed Manchester United. Legia Warsaw was too exotic, seemed difficult to get to. Pesh, loads of my older friends went to Pesh, a lot of them dressed as Father Christmas in this sort of Hungarian university town. So by the following season, I was going to every single one, but that season I was just, I was still at school and it was difficult. But Rotterdam, I thought, I am not missing this. It's just, I'm going, whatever happens, I'm going. And I was determined to travel independently, which was very difficult because there was a lot of anxiety about English football fans at the time. It was the first season back in Europe. The reputation was not a good one. Rotterdam and the Dutch fans had a little bit of a reputation. And at first, the club said there's going to be no independent travellers. And I didn't want to go on the official coaches. I wanted to go to Amsterdam and see the world. And I booked all my travel and with a company called UF Tours. But I was already doing United We Stand. So the company, looking back, they probably wanted me on side. And one of the organisers said, come and meet me. And I remember the place where I had to go meet them, Karaoke Business Park in Ancoats. And I'd never been to a business meeting in my life before because I was a child. And I told my mum I'm going to a business meeting. And I had visions of them saying to me, well, they actually said, you'll be going on an executive coach to Rotterdam. And I paid for this. It wasn't a freebie. But I thought, because I did the fanzine, I'm going to be sat on this coach downstairs with the table. I would be traveling to Holland in absolute luxury. So this business meeting was basically them telling me that, thanks for paying us for the trip. It wasn't even a meeting. It was just me paying them to go to Rotterdam. And that the coach would be brilliant and everything would be fine. And when I got to Piccadilly Station at 4 a.m. to meet the coach the day before the game, having finally got a match ticket, and when I walked away from Old Trafford clutching that green counterfoil, I reckon I've never buzzed off getting a match ticket as much in my life. It was a beautiful looking ticket, and it came after so much tension. Will we get tickets? Yes or no? Yes or no? As in, will independent travellers get tickets? So I had a ticket. Now I had my travel. I turned up at Piccadilly Station, 4 o'clock in the morning. And this coach turned up, and I'm sure it was executive.
Andy, how did you get there? Did you have any sleep? Did you walk from home? How did you get to Piccadilly? What was the...
At that time, it's too early to get public transport. I was living in Urmston. And we must have got a lift or a taxi. I went with my mate Tom from school, and when this coach pulled up to meet us, we just couldn't believe our eyes. It probably was executive when it was built just after the war, but by 1991, it didn't.
Any particular war? First, second?
It didn't have a toilet. It didn't have a TV. And I saw the lads getting onto the bus, and I thought, whoa, it was like every gangster in Manchester was getting on the bus, and they were all carrying these big slabs of beer and talking excitedly about what they were going to do in Amsterdam. And they weren't talking about visiting the Rembrandt Museum. And we got near the back. We were the youngest on there by a mile. I was the only person wearing any colours. I thought I was cool wearing a retro United shirt from the 60s. There wasn't a dash of red on the whole coach. And when we got to Dover, I was told to hide my colours. And that was quite right, because there was still uncertainty about whether we'd be allowed to cross the channel or not. So I hid my colours. But Dover was a long, long way from Manchester. We'd only got to Kiel services, and the driver was being told to effing pull over now because the bladders were all full. So it was like a shebeam on that bus. Smoking, drinking. The music was brilliant in 1991. Loads of Manchester tunes, Northside Mondays, Rosie's Carpets. And I just sat there so out of my depth. And we were looked after, actually. Looking back, we were really looked after. The older lads, a lot of them were Salford lads, a couple of lads from Wythenshawe. They kept an eye on us, and I'm pleased that a few of them became good friends and still call them friends now, many, many years later. One big problem I had was we weren't allowed to leave school to go to Rotterdam. And the headmaster got wind that people were considering it and basically said, if you go, you're getting suspended. So 13 people in my school got suspended because they went to Rotterdam. And I didn't, because I lied. I told him that I'd been invited by the mayor of Rotterdam, because I did United We Stand, to promote good relations with rival Barcelona fans. And these things happen all the time now. I had a designer doing United We Stand. I knocked up a forged letter and presented it to the headmaster. Now, the reason I presented it to the headmaster was because they put me forward to be head boy of the school, and I didn't want to be head boy. And he said to me, you've done well in the pupil vote. I came like 17th in every teacher and every pupil had a vote. And the teachers didn't think I was head boy material, but the pupils did. And the headmaster took this letter, saw that clearly I was man of the people rather than the teachers, and said, we're very proud of you, Andrew, representing Urmston, going to Rotterdam, and shook my hand and wished me on my way onto that shitty bus. And so I had 3 days in Amsterdam, and everyone else got suspended. And then on the way home, got to Dover, rang my mum, and my mum was crying because I'd been made head boy to school. And mum, my mum was single parent, in so much that my parents had split. Money was absolutely tight, and a lot of the other people who'd been in position to be head boy, they had campaigns behind them. They wore suits. I had a purple naff jumper. Yeah, my mum was crying her eyes out. Nothing to do with the game, and that phone call was from the docks in Dover.
What was naff?
Naff was a French company which was very briefly popular in Manchester. I say naff jumper. It was actually a fake naff jumper because
even better.
Because I wore it to go to a concert in Leeds, 1st of June 91. Happy Mondays. It was at Ellen Road, The Farm, Northside, all these bands, and I remember really liking that fake jump that I'd bought because I went to the game. I knew the type of lads who maybe didn't always ring up customs and excise to declare their VAT forms on time. And, these were grafters. So they were selling snide naff jumpers to people like me and shell suits and stuff like that. So I was sort of unwillingly became connected with all of these type of people in Manchester. And I had to replace my red retro shirt with a purple fake naff jumper.
Yeah, we used to call them fucker jumpers because every fucker had one.
Yeah, well, I was one of them, unfortunately.
What do you remember about the game then, Andy? Because I watched it again on YouTube the other day, and I'm not a United fan, but I don't remember United being as dominant. And you look in the stadium as well, and it looked like United fans were outnumbering Barcelona fans, maybe 2-1.
Yeah, I think football fans can be very self-aggrandizing when it comes to away followings. And you never hear football fans talking down the numbers. They always talk it up. And football hooligans also do this. It was always, we were 20 against 200. And fans do it. But I do think it is fair to say that 2/3 of the stadium was comprised of Manchester United fans. Now, I've spoken to many Barca fans who were there, proper Barca fans, and they dispute that with me. And officially, United got 21,400 tickets and sold them all. But those tickets tended to be but certainly the end, but all along the side, you could see Union flags. They were really popular then. They're not now at the match. You don't see Union Jacks at United games so much anymore. And it was definitely 2/3 United. I remember the rain. I remember outside the ground, it was lagging it down. Amsterdam was full of United fans. They were all in all the cafes. People were getting stoned. They were getting drunk. And it was just brilliant to me as a young lad. It was so exciting. I remember our hotel, which the company had booked us into. It didn't have 5 stars or 4 or 3 or 2. It didn't even have a star. And, I don't think it really should have been called a hotel. But it did have a
somebody's
door.
house.
It was just like, what on earth is this? But we couldn't say anything because, who were we? We were children. And
What did you pay for that, Andy? When you went on your business trip and you agreed to the price, or you haggle while you were haggling at that business trip of yours, that business meeting? Sorry, not the business trip. The business meeting. You were haggling, weren't you? And you said, well, could the trip to Warsaw cost this? I think I should be paying that. And then what you did, so you just said you must have a certain amount of money to go along with. You must have. Did you just say how much have you got, or was there an actual? Right, we'll take that.
I got to know this company because flyers were dished out around Old Trafford, and I remember £180 all in for the 3 days. So that bought you return coach travel, ferry crossing, and 2 nights in Amsterdam, under a roof in Amsterdam. I can't remember haggling. I don't think I would have haggled. I think that's the price. You just paid it. I wouldn't say that the description accurately matched the reality, but it didn't feel like it mattered when you turned up at Dover and you saw that there were other United fans there. The relief of getting through the channel. Well, I say through, but the Channel Tunnel wasn't even open then. We went by ferry, and just driving on a road in Holland and Belgium, it was so exotic. I wasn't well travelled then. I'd only ever been to the places where working class families went in Spain for their 1-week holiday every 2 years. And so to be going to, wow, there's a sign for Brussels, and arriving in Amsterdam. And I remember seeing a houseboat for the first time, and it just seemed incredible that someone would live in a boat. But obviously they do, and there's no issue with that.
There wasn't an attempt by your fellow travellers to board this particular vessel, was there?
They arrived in Amsterdam full of enthusiasm and talk about how many ladies were going to introduce themselves to. They were the opposite of us. They were not wet behind the ears. I was given £15 by a teacher at school and asked to buy a pornographic video for that teacher. I mean, you look at it now.
What?
Yeah, I mean, you look now and you think it's so out of order.
So you were 17.
Yeah, when did you got promoted to head boy?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no wonder. Maybe that was the reason I didn't get the teacher's vote, because he was telling people. But maybe he thought, I am the man who will be identified to buy him a video. And you know what? I bought it.
Did you ever consider that it might have been a test?
I think I just genuinely took it at face value, and he didn't even give me like £1 for buying it for him, and I didn't even watch it. We didn't even have a video.
So was this in the back of your head that this might have been potential disappointment for people when you spoke to your mum and told when she told you that she was so proud of you to be head boy, and you said that not only that you managed to get over and certainly get back to England and had met many wonderful people along the way, but you were bringing a present back for one of your teachers.
My mother's an Old Trafford girl, and she's definitely not wet behind the ears, but I definitely would not have told my mother that I'd bought a pornographic video for a teacher. I just knew what I was like then, and I wouldn't have told her. And anyway, she had her moment, and it wasn't United winning. It was just like the 3 previous years had been a struggle because she'd separated from my dad, and it was difficult. It just was. And for her, for other parents to be ringing her, I think she was just very proud of that at the time.
Yeah, of course,
because I was, proud of my team with these beautiful white kits in Rotterdam and playing well against Barca. Against the Barca of Cruyff with Laudrup, and I know Barca were missing a few players, and more than I do, Brian, because you were on the pitch and I was singing your name, and I was really excited when you signed for United. And I put a lot of thought into, can this man from just outside Glasgow score 20 league goals? In the summer of '87, that was a major issue in my life. It wasn't talking to girls or playing football. It was working out if this man can do this, and he did. So your name was being sung, and that season coming out of Platt Lane, I think it was the October of '90, with the 2 goals against Howard Kendall's Manchester City team. You were a cult hero. There were 7,000 of us in that away end singing your name, and it was good. Things were coming together because United finished 13th in 1990. That's not good enough. But by 91, finished 6th. I was at the game before Rotterdam, Palace away, got beat 3-0. And some people were going straight from London to Rotterdam. Some people were flying, but I just thought planes were for rich people. I really did. Until budget airlines came along, I just thought that's what rich people do. Never once thought that I could fly to Amsterdam. And that's what took me into the clutches of UF Tours.
Well, the thing that I had to make a comment to you, Andy, was that certainly for me, when we walked out into it was quite clear on the bus trip from the hotel, because we were in a small hotel in the outskirts of Amsterdam. But there was we could see lots and lots of United activity on the way to the stadium. But when we came out, 2 things you mentioned. One was the weather. Thought fantastic. This has got to suit us, and it was a bit like misty. I call it kind of. They've got, as you can imagine, they've got lots of names for rain in Scotland, and this kind of rain was smirr. It kind of caused the haze. But for me, walking out of that tunnel was clearly that the majority of people were Manchester United fans, and for them to, going from those lads who I spent some time with after the game in Muncie with their Santa Claus outfits, to get to Rotterdam in the final had been a wonderful journey, and a wonderful journey for everybody that had been involved in that. But the buzz it gave you walking out onto that football pitch with the majority of those fans there who'd made that effort, and at considerable expense and risk, like yourself, would give us certainly me an absolutely incredible lift. And then I was also aware about the younger, and I was disappointed in the fact that younger people were denied, or school age has been denied the opportunity to go to, which may well was a one-off in terms of that competition. United went on to have some other notable and potentially greater victories in Europe, but that one was probably special for a generation that had missed out on that and a number of games and opportunities because of the ban, and it just seemed to be a fitting into that campaign, and we felt confident without being arrogant about the game, because we knew all about the Barcelona players, we knew how good they were, and the teams that they had beat along the way. But we were given a clear plan, and the clear plan was to make it as rough as possible for them and try and put them off their the game that the way they like to play. And I certainly think that the climate and the atmosphere made a huge difference to that victory.
And I've asked people at Barcelona, I've asked players and fans about it. It's sort of the forgotten final. In Camp Nou, there are lounges named after Basel, where they won the Cup Winners' Cup in '79. Obviously, the European Cups, and Rotterdam barely features. But I was quite humbled speaking to some Barca fans recently as I researched this, and just that one guy, Jordi, he was in Rotterdam. He spoke really well about the behaviour of the United fans. He ran through the whole team to me off the top of his head, and the only player who got wrong was Phil Phelan rather than Mike. He just talked about his admiration for Manchester United, and it was just wonderful to listen to him. And he talked about how Mark Hughes had not been a success at Barca, and that really disappointed him because he'd excited when he joined, and it wasn't Mark's fault because the team was in transition and he was played out of position. And I also spoke to the referee, Bo Carlson in Sweden. I spoke to him last week, and people who were at the club. And I think it is a major, a sort of watershed in the life of a lot of United fans, as you mentioned, Brian, because I was 17. The music seems the best when you were 17. You know, it was the year that passed my driving test. You had your first girlfriend. It was just a wonderful time in life. And so many of my friends were there. And it seemed like Manchester was the centre of the musical world as well. And a lot of that music has stood the test of time. But just that one word, Rotterdam. And I've been at Rotterdam like 5 times since, and I've seen United play there again. And it's a great stadium. That's another thing. It's a proper football ground to keep. The atmosphere is brilliant when it's empty. And I think Rotterdam, I know it's a port city, but there are similarities with Manchester. You know, Paul Eaton sang about Rotterdam as well as Manchester. It's a working class city. It's a football city. It's not a fancy place where people go to. And there was very little beauty in Rotterdam in the rain. And it just evokes such strong memories, and winning it, and you were in the team. Did it give you confidence that you could go on and win even bigger trophies?
It was that you wanted to. I mean, my whole thing was about being a professional football player, Andy. But it was winning was one of the other major things. In winning things, going to Wembley, winning the FA Cup, even as a lad growing up in Scotland, the FA Cup, as well as the Scottish Cup and the Scottish Premier League. The FA Cup was a special thing to go there, play at Wembley, and then play in the replay and win the FA Cup. It gives you that kind of boost. It gives that boost to think, well, and a kind of appetite. I mean, the manager had a huge appetite for it, which is clear with the massive success he's had as a manager, both in England and in Scotland. But yeah, going and then winning a game like that, a game that nobody expected us really to win, and I would include that was even the most passionate and optimistic of United fan. It just get that thing that, well, let's just try and keep winning things. And Fergie was the same thing every day. I mean, every first day pre-season, every year that I was a player, he would come into the dressing room in the morning and say, forget about last year, that's history. Right, he said, who's willing to climb back up to the top of the mountain? Because I can tell you this, I am. And if any of you in here don't fancy it, just come and let me know, and we'll part ways. And they'd walk out. And to me, that was the thing about, well, yeah, that's correct, yeah. But the wonderful thing about that, there's so many fantastic memories about the whole journey from the first game all the way through to the final whistle.
The great Barca team. They played
well,
their
best.
I
mean, I didn't realise actually. Again, I looked at the teams before we came on again, and they were better than I actually thought when I was looking at the players that played. But
won the European Cup a year later.
They won. I know 1-0 at Wembley. Yeah.
So Eusebio, who played in the game, he told me that they'd knocked Juventus out in the semi-final, and he said for the final we were missing Zubizarreta and Moore and Histro. Ronald was not fully fit. It was our third year under Cruyff, and we just won the league for the first time in years at Barcelona. That season we played our best football of any of Cruyff's teams. maybe it was a bad thing because we already knew we would be in the European Cup the following season. I thought that was quite interesting.
I didn't think they'd won the league by then.
Yeah, they won the league. We didn't play well in Rotterdam, and Manchester was superior. We were used to dominating teams and having control of our rivals. We couldn't do that against Manchester. I love it how he calls United Manchester.
Well, they're all misinformed when it comes to that, though, isn't it? But it's a very fine accolade.
Life with Brian, life with Brian, life with Brian.
So after the final whistle and the trophy presentation, you all go par back into the dressing room, no doubt. And apparently you got hauled out as part of the random drug testing.
Yeah, so you get, it's brilliant. You get that thing. I've blagged my way into hopefully lots of photographs in the celebrations, full of it, feeling very, very happy to get to that thing. And we've won the Cup Winners' Cup. Brilliant feeling. We get in the dressing room and you want to celebrate and you want to be with your teammates and the staff. And it's immediate. They come straight in the dressing room and say 2 numbers. And it was like, fuck. It was me and Mick Phelan. And you've got to go right away. So you have to leave. So we're in the dressing room for a minute or so. And we was taken to a cubby hole underneath the stand somewhere, which is a designated drug room, and we go in there, and there was I know there was plenty of things to drink. Well, certainly there was plenty of ice cold beer or lager. I think it was. It was who sponsored it? Was it Carlsberg then? Was it Cup Winners' Cup sponsor UEFA? I don't know. Anyway, there was plenty of beer, and Mick and I thought, well, just make the most of it. You know that. We'll celebrate just the 2 of us. And then the 2 Barcelona players came in, clearly, pissed off that they'd lost the game. And I thought it would be an idea that to try to I didn't speak English, or not very much. And I think I got a B for O-level Spanish at school. So I thought I'll just try and knock some chat out of them, while we're here. It's this kind of surreal scenario. You've got 2 really happy guys and 2 guys that feel like shit, can't wait to get out. And I'm trying to talk to them in my wee bit of Spanish to Catalonians who don't tend to like Spanish speakers. So I think that looking back, they probably thought I was taking the piss. Here's this guy that, was rubbing it in. Not only have they won the game, and maybe they thought we were fortunate or whatever. And I'm attempting to, whatever it is, talk to them or take the piss out of them. And
well, you could say you were quite literally Spanish, taking the piss if you were providing this real example.
I know, and it was like, and no wonder they were thinking, well, they weren't best pleased. They didn't look very happy when I just gave up. I just thought they were poor losers, but I think maybe they were more thought I was at it. I managed to produce a sample, and then you have to leave. So I was escorted back to the dressing room where most of the lads had been showered and changed. So I went into the shower, and I suppose even part of that, and part of the thing is the joy of showering together after a win like that. And I'd missed that as well.
But I heard you didn't miss out on the celebration because you all piled back to Amsterdam, didn't you?
No, but the thing is as well, we got to the bit and they were going, right, come on, we want to go. Like, we need to wait for Mick. No, we're not waiting for him. There was nobody like supposed to be a team that showed a great effort all the way through, a magnificent team effort to win the game, and we weren't going to wait for him, and we didn't. We left them.
So he was still trying to produce a sample while you cleared up.
Yeah.
You left Mick Phelan in a cupboard, swigging cans of Carlsberg, desperately trying to fill a urine sample.
Yeah.
And what happened? Because you headed back to Amsterdam, didn't you? I mean, did he catch you up?
He just appeared at the party with his, I can't remember what he'd done. Still his kit on, I think he's still his kit on.
He must have got the train.
He didn't have those 2 Barcelona guys with him, did he?
Do you want to go to a party? Bring some of those cans with you. We're going to a party.
I mean, I assume it was a pretty raucous night when you got back to Amsterdam.
It was. I think that because there was no. I think the again thing that was great that we had the whole hotel and we had the function room and the function was in there and it had been. Well, it was great. It was a great night. It was a great night and morning, and great next day. But the party was pretty raucous. Yeah.
So 30 years on. I mean, it's now 3 decades on. Where would you say that ranked in your achievements at United? Seeing as there have been so many. I mean, because it was such a prominent one. Does it hold a special place in your heart, or is it just one of many?
I think it was the best party.
That's all that matters.
I'll rephrase that question. Was it the best celebration you had of your?
It was the best party, yeah. The best post-match party.
You're not willing to divulge any more into information.
Well, it was just a great night. I mean, the standout for me was the whole. It was a great time for Manchester music. So the theme song for me all through the Cut Winners' Cup was "Sit Down."
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, I can recall that being the anthem of that. So
I think I got that played at least twice. I think we were, and it was just jumping around, getting just a really joyous experience,
Yeah.
And the terrace chant at the time was the "From the Life of Brian," was it not? Always look on the bright side of life.
Yeah, it could have been that as well. Yeah, which is another one of my favourites. Yeah,
very apt.
From a wonderful film. Yeah, no,
and then
great party. I mean, they did have a one little thing where I kind of put my foot in it with Mick Hucknall managed to blag his way into the party. I don't know how he managed. I think Neil Webb maybe got him in.
Mick Phelan probably
he wasn't part of the. I think it was Webby. I'm pretty sure. I think it was Webby anyway. I had a chat with Mick where I was sort of saying to him I thought his music was shit. And he was telling me that I was saying, I think I wasn't drunk at all. I was just like,
that's what it means.
At that point, I wasn't there, and I was like, reeling off all these bands that I liked: Mondays, Roses, James, Pogues. I really like the Pogues. I think they're wonderful. And he was saying, "Oh, well, we've just done the best music we've ever done. It's absolutely incredible."
Was that the time of the Stars album?
And I said, well, that'll probably be shit as well. You've seen you've had your day in the sun. It was good. It was not a bad one, but I think you're fading into oblivion now. That was my.
And they bring out an album that sells about 50 million copies.
Yeah, 2 weeks later, it came out. Stars. Fortunately for me, I didn't bump into Mick for a number of years, and I had the good grace to not mention it, or he'd forgotten. But I'd never forgotten that I was, I was like saying, that'll probably be garbage as well. Stars. He only bought a vineyard or something like that. I mean, who would deny a man a vineyard in France? He was good. He was good company, but I was probably rude.
I can't believe it for 1 minute.
Or maybe it was banter. I don't really know, but I mean, he didn't hit me. So
well, look, he blagged into the party. I mean, if you blag into a party, then you deserve to be abused in my book. So I'm sure he'll forgive you.
I thought I was being humorous.
Sure, he didn't.
Oh, he was all right because he didn't get up and stomp off or anything like that and drop his beer or his champagne. I think he was probably polishing off some of the champagne that he wasn't expecting.
Was that the champagne that you and Robbo were drinking all night, was
it? Champagne was more of a breakfast. Champagne was breakfast time. Because I went to bed at, I don't know what time it was. It was like, last man, there was just 2 or 3 of us me, my mate Chris, maybe Robbo as well, 5 in the morning or something. And for some bizarre reason, as I was going past reception, I asked to get maybe 6 in the morning, I got asked to get an alarm call at 7. And I went into my room, had a sleep, the phone rang, and I'm like, what's going on here with this? Yes, your alarm call, sir. Yeah, time's at 7. I go, what am I doing? What am I getting an alarm call for? We weren't leaving till midday. I got an alarm call for 7. Just get up. And I went and knocked my guest up. So we're going to be over for breakfast. Yeah, we're going to go down for breakfast. And Robbo came down and he said, called the waiter over and said, a bottle of champagne and some orange juice. And that was us. Everybody came down then. I think the next person down was Martin Edwards, actually. And Robbo, I think he joined us for a box fizz for breakfast. And then everyone came down. I think Robbo saw that's a green light to order everyone who came down a bottle of champagne to their table. So everybody had, well, nearly everyone had box fizz for their breakfast. And then it was so that was another sort of kind of stopped, and then we had an hour off, and then we regained some momentum. And we had a good laugh and carry on at breakfast.
And you had to go all the way back to a screaming baby when you got home, eh?
I don't remember Liam screaming very
Just
much, at all.
McClare's mailbag. McClare's mailbag. McClare's mailbag.
Right, it's mailbag time again. So, Matthew, can you grab your sack, please, and give it a shake and see what drops out?
I will indeed. There you go. And what we've got here, we've got a question from Rob Hill. And he says, I love watching Sparky back into defenders, holding the ball up and bringing people into play. Strong, brilliant on the volley and a big game player. But do you think his brand of forward play would survive the way the game is refereed now?
I do think that, because he wasn't... anything that he was doing in those situations where he was holding the ball up, and very rarely was it a foul. He was just so strong and powerful and low centre of gravity that you couldn't shift him. Now, he probably would have got into some trouble with some of these tackles, but they're not looked upon as very positive nowadays. But I think he would be. I think he would be.
I mean, the first player that comes to mind, I know he's not around now, but I mean, you think someone like Drogba was a similar kind of physical forward, wasn't he? And he was he played in the modern game. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I suppose there's still a place for it, and seeing as defenders are clamped down upon now, as we've spoken before about how defenders can't whack people from behind early.
No, I think it might even have been. I think it made it even easier for them because they're not clambering all over the top of him. They're not scraping down the back of his legs. They're not standing on his toes. I think it would have been even easier for him nowadays because he couldn't really get around him, or he couldn't really get over him, and it's very difficult to knock him down.
Okay, so we got one from Dan Lefondre, and he says, Robbo suggested this was probably his greatest game. Would you agree? Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with a question we've got from our old friend Dave McLaughlin, Cumbrian Dave, as you know him. And he says, who would your man of the match have been for United that night? So, I mean, would Robson been your pick, or would it have been somebody else?
I wouldn't say that, to my recollection, that there was an outstanding player. I think there was an outstanding team performance. Fergie used to say that, in big games, if 6 or 7 of you can put in an 8 out of 10 performance, he was confident you would win the game. If all of you can do that, or even some can get to 9 or potentially 10, maybe in some games that some players did, then he thought they would win comfortably. And I think that everybody that played was at least an 8. There may be some players that were up there with 9s, I think. So I think that was an overall team performance. Robbo played well, yeah, but I think everybody could say that in games, it's even big games. Sometimes you have someone who's off form. I don't think anybody was below an 8 in that game. And maybe it was the overall most influential player for us.
Very diplomatic answer, I think you can class that one as. And finally, Budgie, he says, did you ever get hit in training with one of those famous Clayton Blackmore rocket free kicks? Now, Clayton scored a couple in this run, didn't he? I think famously Montpellier, he scored one from about 35 yards that snuck in. But I mean, he was known for having a bit of a rocket shot.
Yeah, Clayton was a very good striker of the ball, and Clayton will be able to tell you every single goal that he scored in training. And when I meet Clayton, he'll be talking to me and saying, "I remember that one I did. Remember that one, Remember I bent that one at the top corner at Littleton Road. Remember we were playing practice match Jazza. Or I bent that one past Jazza, and I'm like, who are you talking about? Who's Jazza? Who's this Jazza person? About it was Jim Layton. He's talking about scoring a goal in training past Jim Layton, and now it was a worldie. It was amazing. That was one of the best I've ever scored. Clayton, it's training. Yeah, but it's still a goal, isn't it? No, Clayton, and he can remember more goals. He remembers all sorts of bizarre things like that. So there's two things about Clayton. There's that he'll always talk to you about goals he scored in training, and he will always, within a very short period of time, have got the conversation on to golf and his golf, because he's down now. If you look at his social media stuff, before ex-professional football player, it has professional golfer.
Yeah, is he that good? Is he that handy?
He's good. Yeah, but he's been in the qualifiers for the Senior Open for the last few years, or certainly before 2018, 2019, and he got quite close to qualifying for the.
I hope you told him that his shots he hits down the range don't count as you can't count those as.
No, they can't. No, he'll remember all of them. He'll remember all of them as well. Whether there was a bit of fade on that or a bit of a draw on it, he'll know all of that. Golf clubs, golf balls. He's not the. I've roomed with Clayton several times, and despite those topics of conversation, he's not the worst.
I'm intrigued to ask who is, but you don't. That's not technically a mailbag question, but it's a supplementary question.
No, I'd have to wait for that one.
Shall we wrap it up there then and put these memories away in the box for another time? Brian and Matthew, pleasure as always. Thanks very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks again to Andy Mitten for his fantastic stories from Rotterdam 91. You can follow him on Twitter at Andy Mitten. If you want to say hello to us, we are at Brian McClare Pod. The mailbag is always open for questions using the hashtag AskChocky. Subscribe to Life with Brian wherever you get your podcasts, and any nice reviews you could give us would be much appreciated. Thanks to you for listening, of course. We're having a great time doing this podcast, and we hope you feel the same way about being part of it. So take care until we see you next time.
Life with Brian, talking films or music. Life with Brian, talking TV and food. Life